PocaTV, Wenzzzday.
So, hi there, DJC. We're live. It's a Wednesday Ting,
Hi,
and
Poca.
we had a little something going on just now, didn't we? Technical and all of that.
Yes, but we can hear each other perfectly now.
Well,
yes?
I'm hearing you. Let's keep it that way.
Yeah.
So, everything all right?
Yeah, man. Everything's fine. We're having some lovely, blessed rain at the moment.
Are you?
Yeah, so which is a real relief because it's been a bit of a drought.
Well, I was recently in the Caribbean, and I guess I brought some Dutch rain there and took some Caribbean sunshine back here, which is the order of things, to be honest.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, Europe started it.
Europe started everything.
Exactly,
So the Wenzzzday thing is when you and I just chat shortly, briefly, very vividly, I hope, about stuff that keeps us awake at night. And you told me earlier today you got some great personal news that you wish to share.
Oh yeah, I got my first I accepted my first Airbnb booking, which is great.
Congratulations. For people who don't know, you are in Jamaica. You have a wonderful house there. You got a swimming pool and a big yard, and you got 2 rooms for rent. And then COVID happened, and now finally you're starting your business. Congratulations on that. When are you gonna? When do you expect your guests to come?
1st of July.
1st of July, and staying a while, I hope.
2 weeks.
2 weeks, great. Okay, so congrats on that. But that's not what this show is about. This show is about stuff that happens in the news and you and I get worked up about, or we have an opinion on. Because these days everybody has an opinion. So why can't we, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's
okay. So what is your topic for this week?
Well, it's a hot potato here in Jamaica. It's about the announcement of extremely obscenely high salary increases for those mainly in the political landscape, in the land of politics, in the world of politics.
Yes.
So it includes all MPs and obviously and ministers as well, because ministers are also MPs. I mean, the outcry has been unbelievable. We're talking about salary increases 100 to 250%. And to put that into some sort of context, you've gone. To put that into some sort of context, normally salary increases, most people accept that they should be pegged to index linked and pegged to inflation. And there's no way inflation is as high as 250%. A few months ago, the teachers in Jamaica were awarded, on average, around 20%, which, some people might even say, well, that's quite high as well, because is inflation as high as that? But you have to put it into context and think it's 20%. Hello? You're back.
I'm back. Are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Now I don't hear you. Like I said, we had some technical trouble. Let me switch to another camera and see what happens. Let me see what happens. Got too much going on here. Are you still seeing me? Are you hearing?
Yes.
Me. Are you hearing me, Adam? DJ?
Yes.
Okay. So for some reason, I have a little something going on with my hub here, which keeps disconnecting my camera and my stuff. I don't know why. So I'm switching to an ugly microphone, ugly camera here. I might give it a go in a little while. Anyway, let's go back to your topic. You were telling us, I hope you kept talking while I was out. Did you?
Not quite. so can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Oh, good. Okay. So what I was saying, whilst 20% does seem quite high when you compare it to inflation rates, you have to put it into context, because 20% of a starting figure, which is very small in the first place, doesn't really amount to much.
Well, let's take it back to February of this year, because that's when, specifically, I remember I was there at the time. Teachers started demonstrating for more wage, and please take it from there. That's the picture on the left you're seeing.
Yeah, teachers were complaining that their salaries were way too low, and it wasn't even as much, and it wasn't even enough to survive on. Hence the expression livable wage. And the conclusion of the pay awards for the teachers was that on average they got around 20%. Now, forward March, April, May, 3 months, and you can see that the second image on the right, which is a reaction to those salary increases to the politicians, which were not 20%, but they were more like in over 200%.
Yes.
And the justification, well, the politicians' justification is quite astounding, really. And one of their reasons is that they're saying they need higher increases to attract a better caliber of person to enter the world of politics. And hang on, I've written this down here. They also said, and I quote from Andrew Holness, who's the Prime Minister of Jamaica. He said, "Underpaid political class cannot effectively run the country to deliver its citizens' demands." And then I've tagged onto that. I said that implies they need more money to motivate them to serve their country.
Right. So let's put this into perspective here for a second, because you send me, because that's what you're really good at. You send me some info. You put everything in a. I expect that to be an Excel sheet. So take us through this.
Well, to give you an example, so there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 10 different posts that I've included in this list. So how it works, the top one is Prime Minister. The current salary is 9 million Jamaican. New salary 29 million Jamaican, which is an increase of 19 million Jamaican. And the reason and to the right, you've got the same figures but converted to euros to give it some context for the people who are not familiar with Jamaican dollars. But the reason I actually presented it in Jamaican dollars as well is because it's in millions, and there's this mindset of people as well that if you say someone's had a 19 million increase, whatever the currency is, it sounds an awful lot.
Yeah. So that's good. So now we get an idea, because if I'm looking at your Prime Minister thingy there, his new salary is going to be higher than the Dutch Prime Minister by quite a lot. Now that seems to be out of context.
Totally. I mean, the Dutch Prime Minister and the UK and some others, I'm sure, are more or less tied to the performance of the nation as a whole, which is normally tied to something called GDP, which is gross domestic product. And Netherlands and UK are clearly, they're wealthier nations than Jamaica.
Yeah, bigger responsibilities, global wise.
Yeah, they have bigger populations to govern as well, to look after.
They got more money.
Sorry?
They have more money.
Yeah, and they have more people at work, which means they have more tax revenue as well.
Right.
Because here's the other thing. It's the taxpayer that pays for this.
Exactly. So how has the reaction been so far in Jamaica? I mean, I keep track of the news, but what's the latest word?
Well, the latest is that two politicians, the Prime Minister himself has said he will not be taking any of his increase at all, and he'll be sticking with the existing salary. The leader of the opposition, Mark Golding of the PMP, has pledged to give 80% of his increase to good causes, although it remains to be seen if and how that can be tracked, that he sticks to that pledge. And the reason he's pledging 80% is because in his mind, the teachers got 20%. So he said it's fair that he keeps 20% of the increase in line with the teachers. But he's going to give the 80% back. None of the other politicians on either party, there are two main parties in Jamaica, JLP and PNP, have said they will forego any part of their salary increases. And when they have been asked to comment, they refuse to comment.
Oh, really? So what's the public saying about this?
Well, it's an outcry. They're disgusted by it. And quite honestly, these percentage-wise and money-wise, they are obscene increases. That's the only word I can think of. And what astounds me is how they thought that the electorate would not react to this, how they thought they could just get away with it in the first place, how they even approved such high increases in the first place is astonishing.
And from what I gather, this is a two-step thing. Is that right? It's first going to be an increase for this year, and next year there's another increase on the way.
Well, yeah, I didn't want to complicate things too much. What I actually did was the new salary figures in this graphic are what they will be on from April 2024. It doesn't actually it's not a huge amount of difference from April 2023, which is where we are now. In the grand scheme of things, it's insignificant. I concluded that it was insignificant for the purposes of what we're illustrating here.
But if you look at the column of the increase, the percentages,
everyone is over 200%. Yeah.
I wish somebody gave me a 200% increase. I'd be fine.
But you also have to think about, if you look at the current salary, when I didn't, until this news came out, I didn't realize what the Prime Minister's salary was. And when I found that it was 55,000 euros, my first reaction was, actually, for a head of state, that actually sounds very low.
Well, that is, but it needs to be somewhere in between the two figures, is what I'm saying. 55 is low. Yes, I can see that. But why does it have to jump to 172 in euros?
Well, exactly. And I go back to what they're claiming the justification is to attract a better caliber of people into politics, and also saying that the current level of salaries is effectively not enough motivation to serve their country. Now, all of this is an admission that in the current status quo, they're not up to the job.
And then that also begs the question, who are they looking to attract to become politician with this salary?
I think one of the schools of thought was a lot of people in Jamaica, if they go to university and they get a degree, a lot of them immediately leave the country, and a lot of them go to America or Europe because they know they can get jobs there which will pay them much more for the same kind of job in Jamaica. And we can't, that is a fact. There's no arguing that.
Okay.
So I think there's a school of thought to try and give them more of a carrot to actually not make that leap to another country and stay in Jamaica, because you're Jamaican, you've gone through our education system,
yes,
you've got your degree, and we want you to.
But they don't do that for teachers. They don't do that for nurses. They don't do that for police people. They don't do it for anybody else except politicians.
It seems very skewed. Another interesting thing that's come out of this is, and this is quite extraordinary, they're going to introduce for the politicians and for the MPs and ministers job descriptions. Now, that means that they don't have job descriptions at the moment. And if they don't have job descriptions at the moment, how do they know what they're supposed to be doing?
Well, maybe that's the reason why things are going the way they are going. I'm just saying. Yeah.
And another thing they said, in conjunction with job descriptions, they will determine and make public KPIs, key performance indicators. And for those who don't know, KPI is a way of measuring performance in any kind of job. And apparently, allegedly, but it remains to be seen how, the members of the general public will be able to track their actual performance, the results against those KPIs. But as I said, it remains to be seen how that will be done. Maybe it will be a public report that will be put on the internet or something.
But maybe that part is a good idea. Let's have a quick look at how at some reactions in the streets.
Okay.
Broken promises, broken country. Broken promises, broken country. Broken promises, broken country. Broken promises, broken country. Roll it back, roll it back, roll it back, roll it back.
Because I am hungry. It's the first protest I've ever been to, and the reason I'm out here is because I'm hungry. I'm angry at this government for bullying the teachers into taking an unfavorable pay package for how they deal with the firefighters, how they deal with the police, and then turning around to award yourself a 200% increase. In addition to the fact that you have a pension where you literally get paid a full salary when you retire. No other country don't have that ridiculous. Your pension is what you throw. In this case, their pension is a full pay, and you want to increase it by 200%? That is madness, and that is why I'm here, to let my voice be heard.
And it is unfair when you put it in the context of what they've given to professionals like teachers, nurses and so on, 20%. And then just because they can, they have gone into our pockets and decide to take out over 200% increase. That can't be right. Plus they are not competent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you can understand their dissatisfaction and their passion to actually get some sort of justice out of this.
How do you think this is going to end?
This is Jamaica. I mean, some people keep saying to me, Jamaica's not a real place. I don't expect a real kind of realistic ending. But I mean, look, Mark Golding, who is
quick roundup, DJ. Look at the time.
All right, okay. I will say the interesting thing is the JLP. None of them agreed with Holness, the Prime Minister's stance, to roll back his own increase. None of them agreed with it, and that is, I think, the reason why he did not recommend publicly that the rest of the JLP also follow his lead. So
he's covering his backside is what he's doing.
Well, but is this also effectively going to lead to some sort of vote of no confidence on him? Because if his entire cabinet are disagreeing with him on this,
then he's out.
This is the kind of thing that happens in other countries, votes of no confidence. But I'll be quick. I know
Very quick.
The PMP leader Mark Golding, on behalf of the PMP, will not use the word "we reject the increases." They object, and he is urging the government to go back to sit at the tables with the unions to renegotiate higher levels of salaries for the lower graded workers. And I think the essence of that, the idea of that, is that they do get an increase, then the politicians will say that's fine, then therefore we can justify these massive 200% increases. I know it doesn't necessarily stack up, but I'm thinking that's where their heads are with this.
Well, to be continued for sure. Thank you for highlighting this.
Well, next week, hopefully, I might have some updates to provide.
You might do, yes, because I didn't tell our viewers that we this is an experiment, and we're going to try to do a thing every week on Wednesday at this time, and come up with topics that both of us care about. Okay. So, are you in any way interested in what's been keeping me going these days?
Always.
Good. It's yours now, the floor.
Okay, so I mean, I know that you have been on travels around in the Caribbean recently. You went to Curacao, Staten, I forget how it's Statia, and Suriname.
That's right.
And the one thing in common, correct me if I'm wrong, one thing in common with all those is that they were all former Dutch colonies. Correct?
Well, not even former. Some still are. So
that's
they're
independent. They're not all independent.
Exactly. That's the whole thing. So let me quickly take you through some of it. First, we went to Suriname. This is for a television program I'm doing here in the Netherlands, And this year is the year that we commemorate 150 years of complete abolition of slavery. On paper, it's 160 years, but as most people know, the enslaved were forced to work another 10 years to buy their freedom. So I went with my crew to 3 former colonies, Suriname being one, the country I was born, and I hadn't been there for 23 years, so it was quite amazing to be there, as you can tell by the pictures. And I thought I'd highlight one thing, because what we find is that, religious houses were very, very, very much entangled in the slavery trade. So the Protestant church, the Catholic church, but also the Jews. And we visited this synagogue that you see bottom left, which, according to the sign on that wall, is the very first synagogue ever built in the Americas. As you can tell, it's the ruins now. And yes, I did think of you because, you are Jewish. I did think of you when I was strolling over there.
How old? Did you know the year or the century?
Never asked me for years because I don't have that. But it's 17 something.
The century. So that's the 18th century. Yeah.
17 something is when they landed. And if you see that, that's a river you see top right. So I always do give props to those adventurers who were colonizers, because you and I can have to imagine in those dark ages, you get on a boat, you come into a tropical country, you've never seen mosquitoes the size of tennis balls, and you just go up that river, and then you think, let's take a little side creek here. Oh yay, let's go build a synagogue. I mean, it takes guts to do that.
So Suriname was known as Dutch Guyana, wasn't it? And then
yes.
And then it got its independence and became known as Suriname. Is that how it
the name Suriname was there before the official independence, right? But it did used to be Dutch Guyana. But one thing I'd like to tell you about that Jewish settlement where I went with that synagogue, there was this beautiful cemetery, really beautiful cemetery for all the Jewish people.
Most Jewish cemeteries are amazingly beautiful and amazingly clean and everything.
Instantly, I saw a lot of names that I know from my childhood in that cemetery. There's some big Jewish names in Suriname, so I see their foreparents there. And then you move down the road to a little obscure little corner, and to be honest, the Protestants and the Catholics had no such thing, but the Jews had a cemetery for their slaves. But look at the difference. Those are the upright pieces of wood with a little red thing on their head.
Is that the Jewish one or the other one?
No, that's for the slaves, for the enslaved.
That's
so
the
one in the middle
is
no, the slaves that the Jewish people used to have.
Right, okay,
right.
Yes,
so
of course,
So in the middle you see the proper Jewish cemetery, and on the bottom right you see where they buried their enslaved people. And when I was there, it just struck me. I mean, do slaves have to be upright forevermore? That's what struck me when I was there. The imbalance between.
So even though they're lying down in the ground, it's still an upright kind of symbol.
Yeah, they will not rest in peace.
Because when you juxtapose them, and if you look at the cemetery for Jewish people, it's very different,
isn't it? Yeah. But at least in Suriname, they acknowledge, the Jewish people acknowledge their part in slavery trade. Which was not the case everywhere we went, because after that we went to Statia, as I was telling you. Now Statia is still part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. It's what they call a special what's the word? Not community. Municipality, a special municipality of the Netherlands. Now, Statia is a very tiny, tiny, tiny little island. You really need to know where it is to find it on the map. They are still very much Dutch. They have that fortress still there, which you see on the on the top right.
Yeah.
And they are very much into Dutch royalty for some reason. And they don't want to talk about slavery days. They don't know anything about it. They don't want to talk about it.
So they're into Dutch royalty.
Yeah, they love our king and queen, and
Even though they're aware of the history.
well, that's the point. They are not. I tried to talk to them about the old slavery days. They just don't know. Now, on the
I was going to ask you one of the questions I was going to ask you was about, you spent a lot of time in Jamaica, which was a British colony, and I know that we know there's a big issue with mental slavery here in Jamaica.
Stacia is totally mentally enslaved. That was what look at. It's 3,000 people living on that tiny little island, and them being this special municipality. I gather, but we never got around to finding out what it is that drives them. I gather they're getting some sort of money, because to be honest, every working person I saw on the island of Stacia was not a station. They were from St. Kitts, they were from St. Vincent, they were even from Curacao. They were not from Stacia. So all I can think is maybe they don't have to work. Maybe they get a little allowance from the king.
Do they have natural? What's their main naturals? Or what's their main export? Do they export anything?
No, they don't even plant anything. Every piece of food I ate there was imported. I mean, look
even
here.
Fruit?
Even fruit.
What?
The Dutch came there to colonize it, to put up their plantations, because it's a fertile place, right?
Yeah.
And now they're telling me, no, they can't grow their bananas and their pumpkin and their whatever.
That's weird.
It's strange.
What about what sort of government do they have there?
Well, they have a governor, like Jamaica still does, but I believe Jamaica's going to get rid of it. They are part of the Netherlands. It's a colony.
Because that government, as you said, Jamaica has a governor general, and it's his job. He represents the king, the monarchy, the British monarchy, and there must, I would presume, there's an equivalent there too.
Same thing.
Yeah. And incidentally, backtracking a bit, the Governor General is also entitled to one of these 200% increases.
Of course
in Jamaica.
he is. Of course he is.
I better mention that because he wasn't on the list.
But of course he is. And he's going to get double pay, because I believe England still pays him some allowance.
Well, I think
I'm looking at the clock, DJ. The bottom left picture is something I want to tell you about, because Stacia and Curacao were what they called depot islands. That's where the ships landed first. That's where they disembarked all the enslaved people, and that's where they sorted who is healthy, who is not. And some people were on somewhere in between healthy and not healthy, and they were put in that shack that you see, to the kind of force-fed the people, so that they would be ready to be shipped out to other places to do the hard work, the sugarcane, the cocoa, the coffee, all of that. So maybe the fact that they were a depot island, meaning that those who stayed there were not the strongest ones. I wonder if that might be a reason why they don't want to talk about it. But we never... How does that sound to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, you call it a depot island. It sounds like a transit island. It's not really a place that was meant for people to actually live there, just work there, and then when they're too old to work, go back to where they came. I mean, I don't know.
No, nobody went back to where they came from. No, the idea was to get the strongest people out to the tough plantations in Suriname, etc.
Yeah.
So I guess that's how they did it. I don't know. I'm just guessing at this, because it was very hard to talk to stations about this.
That's kind of what they say about Jamaica. They said the slaves that were chosen, I should say, to come to Jamaica from Africa, they were carefully selected. It was the fittest of the fittest. For some reason, for Jamaica, they chose the fittest of the fittest, but not necessarily other islands. Because
at that time, Jamaica was the jewel in the crown of the British Islands. So they really invested in Jamaica.
And Port Royal, the busiest trading port in the world, which is in Kingston.
Yeah.
which is
Quick
amazing.
look at what happened in Curacao.
Yeah.
That's where I found that mostly women
Yeah.
were quite activist and were telling the story, which is that this is a big topic even in Europe now, to reclaim the narrative, because for decades on end we've been told, oh, the poor slaves, oh, blah blah blah, they were, yeah, but we never talk about the resistance that actually took place among slaves, and there was a
Right.
lot of it. So I spoke to people about that.
Yeah.
You see me on the top left with at one of the monuments,
Yeah.
which people will see in my television program. I cannot tell
Yeah.
everything I saw there. I'm just
Power
giving
to
you
the
little
people.
tidbits.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
one bottom left is something I would like to end this story with. It's, did you ever hear about the practice of chin licking, DJC?
No.
Well,
Chin
chin licking. You can see it in the picture. You see a slave master licking the chin of a slave.
Yeah.
And the reason they did that was to taste the sweat of the slave to see if the slave had any diseases. Because if the sweat tasted funny, they would not carry that person with them on the ship. Because imagine your goods being contaminated by somebody with some disease.
Yeah.
This
Especially
is what,
yeah.
So this is the stuff that went on in those years, and I just
I'm
like
surprised I'm surprised they even actually licked the slave's chin. That even
well,
surprises me.
of course they're not going to put an officer there to lick chins. They had some sort of somebody who
An underling. Yeah.
maybe somebody who was convicted and saved his life by getting on that ship.
Yeah, because if they are infected, even if they don't swallow anything, they could still get infected somehow.
I know.
So it's a risky thing to do in the first place. Yeah.
I had never heard of the practice of chin licking, so now we know. And bottom right, I cannot stress it enough, I had a lovely talk with the former Prime Minister of Curacao, Maria Liberia Peters, whom I saw a week later in the Netherlands, so I might as well have interviewed her here, but it was lovely to see her there and have a really good chat with her. And I must say I was very impressed, mostly with the women in Curacao carrying the story forward. So that's what's been keeping me up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I did have one kind of, I had several questions and most of them have been covered.
One or two, because we said we weren't going to do this longer than half an hour. And look at us over half an hour.
Maybe it's a silly question. I was going to ask you, is there a noticeable difference when you go to an ex-Dutch colony compared to an ex-British colony?
That's a very valid question. And yes, there is. The most important thing is the British left the they actually built infrastructure in their colonies, like rail, what do you call them? Rail tracks.
Railway lines, yeah.
Yeah, and I have always said the Brits are more, it's more about your social status and less about the color of your skin. The Dutch, it's very much about the color of your skin.
Well,
that's the main difference.
You're saying it's more about, it doesn't mean it's not about the color of the skin with the British, because it obviously was big time.
Yeah, it was. But I mean, in today's time, I believe that what we call racism on the British Isles is more geared towards your status in life than. That's what that's my thinking. But the main thing is that they actually built some infrastructure and left it behind. The Dutch did not.
Oh, really? So kudos to the Brits. Is that what you're saying? Or no kudos, or well, the opposite to the Dutch?
Kudos to nobody. But if I had to choose between the two wrongs, I would probably choose the Brits.
Yeah, what a horrible thing to choose between. But anyway,
I know. Thank you for making this choice for me. Bless you.
But you said it was a valid question.
It was a valid question. Any other valid questions? Quick, DJC.
Well, it is kind of relevant, but I don't know if it's taking place there, because in the UK, for example, a lot of statues, for example, of people who benefited from slavery a few years ago were starting to be destroyed. Protesters were taking them down. But to an extent, I actually disagreed with that, because I think if you do that, you're taking away the history, and people need to be reminded.
Yeah, I think you should. They don't need to have prominent places in front of, I don't know, the palace or something. Put them in.
Yeah.
Let's build a park. Put them there. Put up a big plaque. What actually happened? That's what I say.
Oh, right. So that's interesting. So concentrate on one particular location and make that a museum of
atrocities
in the past. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, people would go. I'd go to it.
I would go too, but then you know that you're going to it, so you don't run into some kind of slave driver that's being honored in your country.
Yeah, but I think there's also something to be said about, if you look at the locations of where they currently are, there's a reason why they're there, because it's symbolic to.
They are honorable places. We should not give them an honorable place, and we don't need to put them on pedestals either. Put them on the ground. Just put them on the ground.
Yeah.
We have a whole thing going on in the Netherlands right now because a 4-meter high statue was erected in front of the train station in Rotterdam. She is not on a pedestal. She's there among the people. It's a black young woman with her hands in her pockets. You should hear the racist stuff that's being said about that statue, that one statue.
Well, I mean, we've known each other for many years, and then quite often you come out with these things about, but you should see how it is in Holland and the Netherlands and the Dutch.
Well,
and it astonishes me. I mean, I thought the Brits were bad.
Yeah.
But the Dutch, well,
the Dutch were very clever at making themselves believe that they are very good at whatever they do. That's
brainwashing, isn't it? Conditioning.
But that's for another time, DJ. I think we should round up.
I mean, we could extend this for a long time, but we won't. This conversation.
We won't.
I've just thought of something else. But anyway.
No, keep it for next week, because that's when there will be a new episode of Poca and DJ C. Wenzzzday Ting.
Yeah.
Have a good one, DJ. Bless.
You too. And I hope anyone who watched enjoyed and thought it was worthwhile. Bless.
And tune in again next week. Tell your friends to tell their friends. Bye for now, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
PocaTV.